Over the weekend, we had news from oil producers. The coronavirus is still gripping the world, even infecting the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. In addition, we will discuss March's dire economic data. All this with Bob Mason of FX Empire. This is the Midweek Market Drivers. Hello, Bob, and thank you once again for joining us. I hope you are keeping safe. Let's dive straight in with regards to oil prices. The disagreement between Russia and Saudi Arabia over the weekend, and with OPEC postponing the meeting that was due to be held on Monday. What is going on, and how is this affecting oil prices?
Yeah, well, we saw OPEC and Russia delay the meeting that was scheduled for Monday to tomorrow, actually, on Thursday. So that got the markets in a bit of a tiz, really, because that suggested that there was unlikely to be a near-term solution to the output issue that's weighed on prices. That being said, however, they're meeting on Thursday, so expectations are for some form of an agreement. Otherwise, that would have been delayed further. Ultimately, if we're going to see oil prices rebound, though, we're going to need to see the US and Canada and the likes also join in discussions and agree to, obviously an output cut and something meaningful as well. Don't expect, the Saudis and Russians to really, hammer down, to sort of 10 million per barrel a day stuff if the US are not committed, because obviously they could ramp up production even further and flood the market with oil. So that's the main issue for now.
Well, it is well known that the majority of oil producers do need to have the price of oil at around $40 per barrel, basically to stay in business. We have information that the Russian Federation has planned for the price of oil to be $42 per barrel, as this makes up 60% of their government income. Let's move on to the coronavirus outbreak, which is having a detrimental effect on the global economy as a whole. Now, with governments implementing stimulus plans to help the markets, are they doing enough?
Yeah, from a stimulus perspective, obviously we're seeing central banks and governments committed to offset the effects of the coronavirus, and they've already made their moves near term. But that's really to soften the blow, really. The dust has far from settled. We saw the spread of the virus slow down on Monday and then, pick up again on Tuesday, which caught the markets off guard. They were hoping, obviously, that that spread would continue on a downward trend through this week. So that's a reminder we're not out of the woods yet. So while stimulus, is in place, that's not to support an economic rebound. Once obviously the virus has been contained and the lockdown measures ease. So more action is going to be needed, particularly from governments and fiscal policy. Central banks, the likes of the Fed, what ammo have they got left? Having thrown in the kitchen sink. We heard, this morning of the RBNZ talking about ramping up its QE, which weighed on the Kiwi dollar this morning. So there's still a lot of volatility in the FX markets, as we're also seeing in, the equity markets, but for vastly different reasons. There's still plenty of uncertainty economically and on a stimulus perspective, which is causing mayhem within the equity markets.
We have seen a steep decrease in the virus across Asian countries and a slight decrease coming into Europe now. Hopefully this gives the government some time to not only prepare for a second wave of the virus, possibly, but also to put the economic side of things in order.
Yeah, I mean, the spread of the virus has definitely eased, so we're not seeing the numbers that we saw last week, but, France saw a spike on Saturday before easing back, and then another spike on Tuesday. Italy's seen a pickup again following, the lowest level since March on Monday, 921 new cases, which was pretty good news. But they're still rising. So, the markets are expecting more from the governments, and the governments need to do a lot more to make sure that the spread doesn't, see a pickup in pace again. These containment measures really need to continue through April and possibly early May. Obviously, the economic fallout is going to be significant with an extended lockdown, but it's going to be far worse if we see, the spread continue into May and the pace continue at the current levels that we're seeing.
With Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, being taken into intensive care with the coronavirus, how is this having an effect on the UK economy?
Yeah, for Boris Johnson, I mean, we do wish him a speedy recovery. There were some mixed messages earlier in the week. There had been messages that he was not on a ventilator, and then updates that he was receiving oxygen. So market's going to need some clarity on that, and that's pressured the pound. Obviously, Boris Johnson's considered pound positive. Foreign Secretary, however, is not. He's a hard Brexit guy, and also, is less interested or supportive of fiscal policy measures to offset the impact of the coronavirus. He may have to change his stance, near term, considering, the unprecedented economic impact and the cause. But yeah, the markets aren't particularly keen, on Boris Johnson being out of the picture. Let's put it that way. So yeah, a speedy recovery, and the markets will definitely need some clarity on his health for sure.
And lastly, macroeconomic data release. The numbers have been dire over the last few weeks, unfortunately, and with historical data pretty much useless in this unprecedented time. How can we see a way forward?
Yeah, on the economic data front, look, we're passing the February numbers now. We're moving into the nitty gritty, which I call sort of March, April figures, and that's particularly poignant. Firstly, we'll get an assessment of how much damage there is, for now, caused by the COVID-19 outbreak, and then we're going to start seeing, going through April into May, what effects stimulus has had on offsetting, the coronavirus impact, and obviously the shutdowns. When you consider the fact that the US only really started shutting down late March, early April, we may even need to wait through May and start beginning to look into June to see the effect of, the Fed's moves. And obviously, we've not even really seen the US stimulus bill reach the American people just yet. So there's more to come. But yeah, once we start seeing, April, May numbers, we're going to start getting a sense of whether the stimulus is having any effect. That leaves the markets at the risk almost of taking another tumble. If there's really no support mechanism. And let's face it, if people are at home and they're not spending money, banks are supported by the fact that people don't need to pay mortgages and stuff like that. But there's no spending as such that's going to support the economy. So we're going to be seeing manufacturing and service sector PMIs out of the US in particular that will start probably looking very similar to the numbers we saw out of Europe for March. And that's definitely going to spook the markets. Don't expect stimulus to be kicking in, to support April numbers for sure. I think, we're not going to expect any impact until, May, June, really, from my perspective. So there's some choppiness left to come.
It's good to know that the data will be helpful in managing the outbreak of the coronavirus. Thank you so much for your time today, Bob. Stay safe. That was the Midweek Market Drivers. We will see you again next time.